Welcome to the mathsonlinetuition.com videos. This is episode 30. We're going to quickly complete chapter 2. The inverse function performs the opposite operation to the function. It takes the elements of the range and maps them back into the elements of the domain. For this reason, the inverse function only exists for one-to-one functions. What does this mean? If we have x in a domain and y in a range, then the function fx, which takes us from x in the domain to y in the range, can be undone, or in other words, reversed by the inverse function, demonstrated as such. This means that if we have a function fx equals x plus 4, then the inverse would be subtracting 4. And likewise here, if we multiply by 5, then the inverse would be dividing by 5, and so on and so forth. So if we look at the examples here, for example 9, you can see find the inverse of the function hx, which is equal to this particular equation. So carrying out all of these particular steps gives us the value that we have demonstrated here. But then taking x and doing the exact opposite as to what had happened above, we get to this particular value. And then this demonstrates the inverse that we have. For example 10, a similar idea. So find the inverse of the function of fx. Now, we've been asked to change the subject of the formula. So here you can see that instead of having y being our subject, x has been made our subject by rearranging. And so we can ascertain the inverse by just simply changing out the variables, so making everything in the inverse of f in terms of x. And then we can double check to make sure that this works by plugging in some numbers. And so we have some more examples here that you can go through to appreciate some of the workings out and some of the questions that you may be asked with regards to the question. Let's take one with a graph. So here you can see that the function has been defined as such, and we need to find the inverse. So once again we change the subject, and then once we've changed the subject, once again we just change all the variables so that it's with respect to the inverse of x, the inverse of f, and we have x as our variable. And then sketching the graph here, we just follow some of the principles that we utilized in our previous chapters of graph sketching. For example, we can appreciate where the curve may cross one of the axes, and then understanding that the inverse will simply just demonstrate a reflection of the fx in the line y equals x in this particular graph. And then for value c, for question C of this example, you can see that they've demonstrated this particular step where they've equated both the fx and the inverse to find the point of contact, and then substituting in the values, they arise at a quadratic equation, and then using the formula, as we've done many times before, they get a value for x. And so here are some more exercises you can conduct on your own, with mixed exercises to finish off, and of course the summary of key points that just highlights some of the more important notions during this chapter. So that's the end of chapter 2. We hope to see you again for our next video. Take care and goodbye.